Alrighty here. This is Ben Parker of CardinalSportsReport.com doing a rare podcast. I don't really do much of these, but we have a very special guest joining me today to discuss this Friday's upcoming women's basketball game between Stanford and Washington State. Brenden Potts of World Exposure Report. You can find him on Twitter at Brenden Potts. No dashes, nothing. It's just at Brenden Potts, just his name, as you see there. That's the handle. And he is an avid Washington State Cougars enthusiast fan, writes about the team a lot, writes about women's basketball a lot in general over at World Exposure Report. And he also just told me that he's a big Dallas Mavericks fan and is excited that they fired their GM, correct? Today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Luka trade was not a smart decision there. Uh,
Nope.
yeah, so very happy to have you on, Brendan. Thanks so much for taking the time and recommending we do this. It's always fun to chat women's basketball, particularly early on in the season. Just because it gives us a chance to kind of preview the teams and everything. So I guess kind of my first question for you to kind of, since you're the guest here, is um, just kind of talk about. I was looking at Washington State and Cami Etheridge has been there for how many years now has she been the head coach of Washington State?
Gosh, she's been the head coach there for about, I'd say, that close to 7 years.
Okay.
Um, probably a little bit longer, but she's been there. She's been there quite a while.
Yeah, I was kidding because I remember when she was hired, but that just kind of
Yeah.
shows you how long I've been covering women's hoops, so that I remember when she was hired.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as just kind of like Washington State's concerned, just kind of I think something that my subscribers would be interested in is kind of two things. First of all, just how has the WCC treated them during this time, and how does the program feel about returning to the Pac-12, I think next year? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to be different. I always viewed the change. I always felt the biggest change was going to be the pitch for recruits, right? And for many years, for any school in the Pac-12, it was you're going to come to the Conference of Champions. For a lot of the people that I know who either play or played in the program over the years that I went there, that was always the desire to come to a school like WSU. Part of that was you're going to play in the Conference of Champions. Um, that's not necessarily the case anymore. Not to their fault, but um, I think the WCC is very underrated. I think they're the most underrated conference in women's college basketball. It's not the Pac-12 of old, but they're a very underrated conference. I'd like to get into that down the road, but Washington State competing in the WCC, I think is good for the competition aspect. You're not getting the full competition aspect as you were with the Pac-12, but it's a lot better than I or than I think many fans would have imagined. I remember a few years ago, I was when this uh, couple years ago when we were kind of roughing the pre of the WSU team. He was like, "Well, we're gonna run through the WCC," and I'm like, "Okay, I could definitely see that. That's definitely a possibility. I just think the WCC is much better than we're given credit for, and it is. I think we've seen that over the past 2 years. I I think even longer if you have some skin in the game, I guess. But that I think it's been good, just not as expected, but that's also to be expected.
Yeah, and on the WCC Stanford women, they just had a game against Santa Clara uh this past week and they won by 21 points. And they ended up kind of winning the way that I think the final score wasn't a huge surprise, but I know like in the second half, Santa Clara got within a few points, and and really pushed Stanford. And it was in many respects a closer game than the final score indicated. And Santa Clara, I think, is picked fifth in the WCC. So if your fifth place WCC team is pushing Stanford, I think that is an indication of a very healthy league. Um, yeah, so that's always interesting. I think it's interesting too, just because Stanford, them and Cal and Oregon State and Washington State were the last four Pac-12 teams still standing. Obviously, Stanford and Cal jumped to the ACC, which I think for them, I think for both schools, I think was the right decision, right move. I think the travel's been challenging, obviously, but it's been in many respects more manageable than I think people maybe feared it would be. So I understand why they made the move that they did. I think especially for Stanford, given their success in a lot of the Olympic sports and the non-revenue sports like soccer, volleyball, trying to think what else I cover a bunch of stuff. Tennis, I mean, it's just softball, baseball. Like ACC is definitely like a better league to be in. But if we're just talking basketball, I mean, shoot, I mean, I think something I've kind of thought about is if basketball was the one driving this, I mean, the new form Pac-12 is going to be pretty good. You're going to have Gonzaga in there. They're really good. And by the way, speaking of Gonzaga, if you have any thoughts on them, you can share that look because I know they're Stanford's playing them next after Wazoo. But Gonzaga's in there, San Diego State's in there. I mean, it's a very what Utah State. It's a very good basketball conference
Yeah.
that Wazoo is returning to. So I'm excited to see how that new look Pac-12 does. Give us a little rundown on the Cougs and just kind of how has their season gone so far? Who are kind of the key players that have been standing out so far?
Yeah, so it's been different. That's kind of be the theme of this of talking about WSU is different. Um, but I think the the biggest change I think WSU over the offseason had it was definitely the biggest change that they've had in their program in quite a long time. And you could point that to the state of where NIL is, where uh, and the transfer portal. We suffered a lot in terms of a lot of our players transferred and a lot of our main players transferred. Um, it was it was more the international route, which has an effect on NIL. I don't know if people know, but international players can't really benefit off of NIL because of their visa issues. Hopefully, that's going to change with universities now being able to pay them. Um, but the WSU, I think the biggest loss was Esther Tahina to Oregon. Um, I remember I remember going to her visit as a freshman, or being there at her visit, and just watching her grow. She's a big tremendous loss for Washington State this past off season, but also got to shout out Kira Gardner. She put 26 on WSU when she played for University of Idaho. So she's really coming to her own. But I think it's also I think the biggest thing is playing time. I think these kids wanted more playing time, and they wanted uh, they wanted bigger roles for themselves. And at the time we talked about Pac-12, right? The Pac-12 of old. These players who aren't going to get enough minutes, well, they're playing on a good team who's competing in the Conference of Champions. So you kind of let it slide right after 1 year, because I talking about Kira Gardner, she was a freshman when they won the Pac-12 tournament. So and she didn't play hardly at all. Now she comes to Idaho her senior year. Now she's one of the stars of the team. So that difference is um, the move to the WCC. You you would think there with all the movement both on the team and on the player side, or both in the team and the conference side, there would be more playing time available when that just wasn't the case. So that's not a knock on the coaching staff or whatever. It's just the reality. Um, for the current team, there's a lot of I was thinking about this a couple of days ago in preparation for this. I think it's a lot of we haven't won a game. We're 0-2 so far. I think I would best describe WSU as a whole bunch of really talented and promising pieces that are formulating into a team this in during the season. They're going to be. It's not a rebuild. I wouldn't call it a rebuild. I would call it a process or a current building situation, which is hard when you talk about college sports. Which is difficult when you talk about college sports like that. But it's just the reality. Um, what getting into specifics, my favorite player on this team is Eleanor Villa. We they call her LA, and she's a she was kind of a 1-2 punch with Esther Tahina. Last year was her freshman year. Um, Now with control of the reins as a star player, she's kind of blossomed in that role. And when I say star player, I'm not saying like for lack of better reference, Paige Beckers or a for Stanford Cameron Brink. Like I'm not saying like a bona fide. I'm gonna put my team on the back, or I'm gonna put my team on my back, and we're gonna go to the national championship type player. I'm saying like a promising star that is the leader of our team, but she also has time to develop. So Eleanor Villa is definitely that for WSU. The other player that I really like is Keonda Karitz or yeah Keonda Karitz. It's I know it's not Karitz. I think it's said differently. From Estonia, she's a redshirt freshman. She redshirted last year. Um, I did not realize how good she would be in her first couple of games. So, and granted, I've never watched her play. I've talked to her a couple of times. She's super nice, um, and she's just a star in the making, and she's just a bona fide scorer. So she's definitely that second piece. And the third one I would go with on this team is freshman Malia Rude. Um, I like her in the post. She reminds me of a little bit of an Ua Motuga. A few we had her a few years ago. She was kind of like our Draymond Green of that team or of those two teams. Um, so not quite that role, obviously, but she's a good four that can sometimes rotate into that five in a small ball lineup. I think she shoots a lot better than Ola did back when she played, but she's definitely another promising player. So those are the three bright spots that I would go to when talking about Washington State for sure.
Awesome. Great breakdown. I think I was kind of looking at the roster right here. I'm just kind of looking at my scrolling through my phone here, and what kind of stands out is a lot of international players. You got Malvina Haziri from
Yeah,
Kosovo. You mentioned Eleonora Villa, she's from Italy. You got Jean Cho, who's from Taiwan.
yeah,
You got Tahara Magassa, who's from France. You got Mackenzie Chatfield, who's from Auckland, New Zealand. You got Tanya Valancic, who is from Slovenia. You got
hmm
Charlotte Abraham, who's from France,
hmm
France. You got Marta Alsina, who's from Barcelona, Spain.
yeah,
You got Keandra Koretz, who you mentioned, who's from Estonia. So
hmm
we are yet to get to a domestic player yet. And then we then finally have Lauren Glazer, who's from North Bend, Washington. Okay.
yeah,
And then we got Alex Colville, who's from Missoula, Montana.
yeah,
And then you round it out with Malia Rudd, who's from Pasco, Washington. So
yeah,
basically, let's see how many players that's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12 players, nine of which are international. So
yeah,
that's absolutely fascinating. I don't know if I've seen a team that has been that international. Um, maybe you already kind of addressed it, but what do you think's kind of gone into that international recruiting? Do you think why
Yeah,
they got
yeah,
to go
I'm
international?
yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna bring it up while you were talking about that. But if you, I don't know, you said that you haven't really seen that. But if you're a WSU fan or you're because I went there for 2 years,
Yeah,
so so I'm not particularly like when I look at this and there's look at this roster and the abundance of international talent. I'm not surprised at all. Like this is what they this is what they do. This is what Tammy Etheridge, Laura Kane. This is what they do. The coaching staff they go out in in the U.S. Yeah, they go into the U.S., but they really go out into the world. Like they scout and they get the players from these countries that nobody these players or countries that nobody's ever heard of, and they go recruit the best talent, and they end up turning into really big stars because and this is why um talked about I'm a Mavs fan. This is why watching Luka Doncic paid off so much because international talent is so underrated um, in any aspect of the game of basketball. These players overseas are really damn good, and it's just not on the national spotlight because it's not. I think mainly because it's not in the U.S. and it's not happening um, in on U.S. soil. Um, for uh, for players like Charlotte Abraham is a name I forgot to bring up. She can shoot the lights out of the building, man. She's a really streaky shooter. When she's on, she's hot. She's the hottest player on the court. Um, it's just getting that consistency. Um, I believe it's Malvina Haziri, one of these players. I believe it's Malvina. She's 16 years old. I didn't even know that was possible on a college roster. I didn't even know that was possible. Um, so just these, yeah. It's Malvina, and from the same place as Stara Tahina was from Kosovo. So they're definitely dipping into that country despite losing one of their own. Um, but that's the name of the game when it comes to WSU. If you've been to WSU's main campus, it's in Pullman, Washington. It basically borders the University of Idaho. They're like less than a 5 minute drive away, and Spokane is like that's where Gonzaga is about an hour and a half away, but it's just basically in the middle of nowhere, and it's that feeling that only WSU Cougs know. When you go to Pullman, you absolutely love it. You just get that feeling of family, of home, home away from home, and it's just an undescribable feeling that only WSU Cougs alumni and current people know. And so that's also a really big pitch for the coaches for WSU when they try to recruit players. But at the same time, it sounds like in the general aspect, it sounds like none of these players want to go to WSU. All due respect, they don't want to go to Pullman, Washington. They want to go to UConn. They want to go to South Carolina. They want to go to New York. They want to go to these other players. That's what players in the U.S. want or desire most when it comes to choosing a college, especially in this landscape as I mentioned earlier. So what do you do? It's all around in mainly basketball. It's all around men's basketball too. You go the international route. You go scout the international route. And for I've been around a lot of these international players been that have graced the crimson and gray for WSU, both men's and women's. And these international guys, they love the place because it is truly a home away from home. And if you're an international player, it's really hard to be away from home. Like it's really hard, especially when you're in a new country, you're having a new experience. Um, some some people like barely. I know like someone from Finland who went to WSU. Again from Kosovo, from New Zealand, um, from Australia. I know a couple of Australians that played at WSU. Who was one of them. But these players like they wanna they wanna come to they wanna go to school for and play basketball in the U.S. obviously, um, but it's also a home away from home, and that's a big deal when it comes to international players. So that's the like when it comes to yeah, you can coach the best players all you want, and that'll give you a lot of success. But WSU's bread and butter is going out of the U.S. and recruiting international players because odds are they're going to become stars in the making that are going to get highlighted in the U.S.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff there. One thing I kind of thought of was Stanford's got a couple on their roster. Laura Shumfai, I think that's how I say her last name. She's from Australia,
Yeah.
but it's a Hungarian last name, so
Oh, cool.
you kind of got a double international thing going there with her. Um,
So I have sorry, I'm sorry to
yeah,
interrupt, but
yeah.
I have a funny story about her. So
Oh, sure,
she
yeah.
was at the she was at the Nike Hoop Summit, and I covered that event in Portland. That's about where I live. I'm about 30 minutes north from Portland, but it was my second year covering that event, and I'm really into Australians. Jade Melbourne is my favorite player in the W. She plays for Washington. She's from Australia as well. And so I met Laura while we were all in Portland. And I talked to her about Jade and she was like as big of a fan of hers as I was. Um, and so, but like she's a super nice person. Like she's a super nice person, great basketball player, and I think that's the common theme around among Australians and New Zealanders too. They're just genuinely really nice people. Um, so that's that. I mean, yeah, I know exactly who Laura is, and so I'm glad you brought that name up.
Yeah, what did you think of her game? Kind of what's kind of you haven't seen at the Nike Heap Summit. She's off to a really good start. I think she's
Yeah,
I gotta check her stats. She's had a couple double doubles at least. She's been
yeah.
absolutely sensational. What's been kind of what was kind of your assessment of her watching her at the Nike Hoop Summit?
She's a great player. I'm gonna be totally honest. I didn't have my full attention on her. I was watching a couple other players, Jazzy, Aaliyah Chavez, and Sienna Betts. Those
Sure.
guys were also there. But Laura's great. She's a great player. I'm glad she's thriving at Stanford. Honestly, I'm surprised, or I didn't pay attention to what college she was going to, but uh, I saw that she was going to Stanford. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's staying on the West Coast. That's awesome. Um, but no, Laura's great. She's a great player. I think she's going to be a great post for you guys. So
Yeah, and I was just looking at her snap. So not only did I say double, I mean she's averaging a double double. It's kind of my thought.
yeah.
14.3 points, 10.3 rebounds. She's been absolutely fantastic. And I guess kind of touch on Stanford. They're kind of rebuilding right now,
Mhm.
and kind of it's not. I would say it's not really. You said you use a different term for rebound. I would say in the case of Stanford, it's not a rebuild necessarily. It's more of a reloading. That makes
Mhm.
sense because they're bringing in five really good freshmen, um, and Laura Shumfai and Haley Swain and Alexandra Eschmeyer and Carly Amborn and also Nora Ezike. So they're bringing in a lot of freshmen, five of them. And yeah, Laura Shumfai has been at the top of that list of like kind of who's been kind of leading the way for them, with her 14 points and 10 rebounds a game, which is just fantastic. And that's neat. You saw her in Portland there at the Hoop Summit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking too. You were talking Washington State, Stanford men. To switch gears quickly on that, Kyle Smith, the head coach of Stanford, was a Wazoo guy.
Yeah, he's my guy.
Yeah. So
I used to.
what do you remember about Kyle Smith? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so man. There he has a few guys from his staff were gosh, those were my guys at WSU. But I'm so great. Like I'm so beyond grateful for Kyle Smith, and he knows to a degree. But like I'm so grateful for him, man. And before I became a writer, I decided I wanted to give writing a try while I was in college. But like um, ever since I was in middle school, yeah, I believe middle school, at least the end of high school, I've wanted to be a general manager of a team and of a basketball team. I just always wanted to be in the front office, control making the decisions. My favorite movie was Draft Day by had Kevin Costner in it, and I saw that movie and I said I could do that one day, but for basketball. And um, I when I came to WSU, I got in touch with an old mentor of mine. He's no longer with us, Mark Morgantine. He used to be the GM of the Nuggets back when Melo played, and was a executive on the Thunder. Um, and Mark had connections with Kyle Smith, and he and I went out to dinner. Mark and I did, and he said, "You're going to Washington State?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I know the coach up there. Do you have his number?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Give me your phone." And he put the coach's number, he put Kyle's number in, and as soon as I got there, I got a meeting with Kyle, and we might have talked for like 40 minutes, just in 40 minutes to like an hour. And it was like all about me and like my journey and just I just gave him the full 411 on myself and he gave me my first chance to be around a college team. So that was around where guys like Mohammed Gay is a big NBA guy right now. He was a freshman when I got that chance. I'm trying to think of other NBA. Oh, DJ Rodman was there. He was a he was a yeah, he was a junior there. He's a
Mhm.
really good guy too. But I'm so grateful for Kyle for giving me that chance to be around a team. On the situation worked out where I would only go to practices and kind of kind of control the clock and kind of be around the team and see what like a college environment is like. And even when I decided at that point like I needed to, all right, I had to leave my senior year. I had to leave the team and go my own way. He still allowed me to watch practices, which I think is really, really awesome. Um, and it was a small scare. Uh, my kind of my senior year, kind of right before Stanford women's played WSU. I just slipped and fell, but like
Oh,
he he like texted me out of blue. I didn't even text him first. Like he texted me like I think word got around the coaching staff, but he texted me like, "Hey, do you need anything? Do you need me to do anything, or do you need me to help in any way?" And I was like, "Nah, man, I'm good." But like the fact that he like was still concerned
right,
and
right.
like I owe so much to Kyle Smith, and I'm sad like I don't talk to him that often anymore. I feel like I should reach out more. But I definitely talked to some guys from that staff um, who are like, man, his some of his guys are on his staff are just a bunch of goofballs.
Yeah, yeah.
They're just a bunch of goofballs. Steven, I can't pronounce his last name, but that's my guy, man. And then I hold Kyle Smith up there too, but also Derek Roble. he got a
Yeah.
lot of crap while he was at WSU, but I always hold him in high esteem because of like the he was. I mean, I talked about Kyle Smith too, but like Derek Roval was kind of like that like 1A 1B.
Yeah.
Um, me played a huge part of my life while I was in college. So I owe so much to those guys, man.
That's incredible. I really appreciate the insight there.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool. I was just kind of in Kyle because of
yeah,
yeah, just because and he's got a lot of international players too.
yeah.
Christopher,
That's what he does.
yeah, Christopher Skrinda and Oscar Gilte and are on the team now, and yeah, a bunch of guys. Oh, also too, former Wazoo guy AJ
Who did
Rahosi
they?
back on the team.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
So fun fact about Rahosi,
yeah,
um, I stayed in a dorm both of my years at WSU, and there was a Starbucks about in a main building of where I had my classes, and I go to dude, I'm their favorite customer. I go to that Starbucks every single freaking weekday, and in my senior year, Rahosi was also there, so that's my Starbucks guy,
that's
and we
awesome.
oh my gosh, I love him, man. I'm so glad he's with Kyle Smith again, man.
That's awesome. That's really
Yeah,
cool. We got a few minutes left here. Before we gotta wrap this up. But
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, just kind of touch quickly on Stanford for in case for those the women's team. I mentioned really star-studded freshman class. They're coming in with a lot of hope, hoping to get back to the tournament this year and make some noise. And kind of for me at least, I think what's been really been fun with Stanford has just been seeing. I think just kind of how quickly the freshmen have acclimated to this level.
mm,
We mentioned Sean Fry already, but point guard Haley Swain has been absolutely fantastic. She's been inserted in the starting lineup and can really push the ball in transition really quick with the ball and can facilitate. Alexandra Eschmeyer is a really good shot blocker, someone that can stretch the floor, but also block shots. And you mentioned Cameron Brink. Cameron Brink had a problem of she was a great shot blocker, but she fouled a lot. The other night, Eschmeyer had 4 blocks and 0 fouls. So
there you go.
yeah, so that's definitely been a strength of hers. Um, and I guess kind of the other thing, at least is I think what's kind of cool about this weekend is for Stanford is even though they're in the ACC, they're still able to maintain relationships with former Pac-12 and just West Coast
Yeah,
teams. Them and Washington State go way back. And also Gonzaga. That's been a real rivalry for Stanford as well. Um, yeah, it's cool, and it's also just kind of cool to kind of see how Kyle Smith has adjusted from Wazoo to Stanford. He brought
yeah,
a couple guys over with him from Wazoo that were committed there. Talis Toure and Evan Stinson were 2 guys that were committed to Wazoo under him, and they
yeah.
followed him to Stanford.
Mm.
So yeah, it's kind of a lot. There's a lot of kind of Stanford Wazoo kind of connections going on right now with Kyle and everything. Um, we got like 3 minutes left here. I guess
Really, really quick.
yeah, kind of final
I
thoughts.
wanted to say this thought. I don't think WC is going to win this game. I put all my chips on the table. I don't think they're going to win this game, man.
Yeah,
What I'm looking at for this game, both for this game and for Oregon, who we play next after that, and really we have a chance to play LSU down the road as well. I'm looking at those games for preparation for a wide, in my opinion, wide open WCC, and that's huge.
yeah,
Because you think of the WCC, I think of them as Gonzaga. Um, Portland, I think, is a really big one. They've had
yeah,
really good success in the WCC. Oregon State coming up a tournament title, which I think they proved also that like the WCC is wide open. So they were picked third to finish in the WCC this year. WSU was, which tells me this thing is wide open. So
yeah,
you need to you may not win these games against a Stanford and an Oregon, and I also share that same sentiment. I know Cammy and the Oregon coach Kelly Graves. I know they have a really good relationship. I know her and Kate Pay probably do as well. So I'm glad those matchups are still able to happen. But I don't think we're going to win those matchups. It would be I think they might have a chance against Oregon actually, but um, I'm using those as building blocks
Yeah,
for a wide open WCC. And it doesn't matter if you punt or if you win the tournament, you're in.
yeah,
And I've talked with Charlie Cream. He's another guy I've met. And last year I fought so hard to get Portland in. I was like to convince him to
yeah,
like Portland needs to be in. Like they're good. Like they are a good team, but no, WCC is not gonna or they're not gonna take two WCCs in the field of 68. So unless they expand, which they're not doing it this year, they need like you need to use these games against Oregon, Stanford, potentially LSU, whoever they Miami, Ohio is who they have left before conference play. You need to use those as building blocks for a WCC that proved to be tough last year,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's going to prove to be tough this year. But this team can really um, can grow correctly, and make a deep run if they play their cards right.
Perfect. We got a minute left here on my recording. So,
Yeah, no worries.
yeah. So, that's kind of what it's saying. So, but no, just to kind of wrap this up, I agree. I think just quickly for Stanford, I think that, for them just to get on the road with all these young freshmen, got to get a road game experience at Pullman. It's a tough place to get to, tough place to win at. I think that's going to be interesting for them. And I think kind of getting a good road test for Stanford is going to be fun. So, it should be a fun game. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time, Brenden, for hopping on here. And
Yeah,
once again, World Exposure Report. You can find him on Twitter at Brenden Potts. So thank
yeah,
you so much, and hopefully we'll enjoy the game and do this again.
yeah, man. This was fun. Really quick, thank you for the support, man. I really really appreciate it. But yeah, man, should be a fun game. I'm excited for Friday.
There we go.